Hello and welcome to Talk Time. My guest today is filmmaker Bhaskar Hazarika, who has created quite a sensation with his latest Assamese film Aamis that is hitting the theaters after rave reviews in the film festival circuit. Bhaskar Hazarika, once again welcome to Talk Time.
Thank you.
This is your second film. But you are already, as I said, creating quite a sensation with Aamis, which is going to hit the theaters. My question is, people are already saying that, okay, Bhaskar Hazarika, oh, he's the guy who make dark overs, some kind of movies which are has very, very sensational twists and turns, even manic twists, some people call it. How do you describe yourself as a filmmaker? Do you agree that you have already come to be recognized as someone who make dark films which are subversives?
Actually, darkness, it's not a personal thing at all.
It's not autobiographical.
Not at all. It's a professional choice because I feel that there are 9 emotions that human beings contain within themselves, and the emotions of fear and disgust are not really explored in cinema. So that means this is a source for original content. So the more original content that I can create, the better it is for my career as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. So I try to mine, the dark elements for content, for cinema. But
so
I'm not at all.
You go for dark themes or give dark twists to your tales by choice.
By professional choice, yes.
By professional choice.
But it's not, like I said, I am a professional, so I do all kinds of cinema. I'm just starting out. This is my second film.
Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years' time, when you look back at my filmography, you will find all kinds of cinema, including comedies, because I am a funny guy.
You are a funny guy. Let's talk about Aamis, 108-minute film. My question is, you have a modern day romance. It's almost it's a Romeo Juliet type of a love story. Yet the lovers don't touch at all, never touch. So how and why?
The germ of the idea was basically to do a story about 2 people who love each other but do not physically touch each other. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to experiment with this kind of a concept and see what kind of story we will get. So a lot of it has to do also with repression, repression of feelings for desire for somebody else, and what are the consequences of that. The second part of the film is not so much a love story as an exploration of addiction and how an addict manipulates those who love them for their fix. So yeah.
So what is the genre? I have not seen the film, I must confess that, but I've seen your trailer, I have read fantastic reviews on the film. Some of them are very critical, in-depth reviews, I would say. What is the genre in your own words? I'd like to, is it a cross-genre film? Because, it transforms into some kind of a horror film towards the end, towards the later part at least.
Yeah, it is you could say it's a cross-genre film. It starts out as a romance, but then it slips into this really dark space, where it deals with themes of addiction and and criminal intent. So I thought that is very it parallels what happens in life too. Our life is also bright and sunny, and suddenly there is some incident, and everything just becomes dark after that. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, so this sudden switch happens in the middle of the film.
Now, your film was screened apart from GIF in the Guwahati International Film Festival, but before that, it was screened at the Geomami Film Festival. And, apparently, after watching your film, so there were viewers who just went to the washroom and was sitting there for a long time. And I've heard that our very own Papon, Angarag Papon Mohanto, he went home after watching the film and started cooking meat and so on and so forth. These are peculiar reactions.
It's peculiar, but it's satisfying for a filmmaker because, Aamis is a kind of a film which is packed with a lot of emotion, So your response to the film, if you really understood the film, then your response is heavily emotional. So this is what causes people to, after watching the film, to not speak to anyone, to stay alone for a while and just reflect on life. So it's a great thing, I think, for a filmmaker to get these kind of responses.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is at the end of the day, this is an Assamese film. My question is, it is hitting the theaters. people are watching, people will be watching the film. Do you think the Assamese moviegoers, the Assamese audience, do you think they're prepared? What kind of a reception have you got? Because some people have already seen the film, some people are seeing the film. So what is the reaction that you got? Are they prepared? How have they reacted?
I don't think the Assamese audiences are prepared for a film like Aamis, frankly speaking. So far, we've shown films, this film in Assam to cinema literate audiences, people who go to film festivals, people who write about films.
Yeah.
You know, what we call the mass, they have not yet seen the film. And I don't think they have ever seen a film like this in their life. So I'm a little, you know, curious to see how they will react to something like this.
And moreover, you decided to go for, you know, newcomers. Your actors are making almost their debut in the film, if I'm not wrong. So why did you decide to do that? Do you think, you know, you wanted to make it much more macabre, but you couldn't because it was their first movie and they were very, very innocent-looking people?
No, that was the idea. The idea was to, you know, because, okay, so we invented new faces because this is, like you said, it's a Romeo and Juliet story.
Yeah.
And any Romeo and Juliet adaptation you see on screen, they always, typically they feature fresh faces because the makers wanted to identify with the character, not so much the actor who's playing the character. So that was one reason why we went with new faces. And secondly, it is not because it was the first time that I could not make it more macabre, because you have to understand that we are making a film in Assam, not in France. So there is, you know, there is a limit to.
So you were conscious of that?
Of course, of course. Every film has to be, you know, like take into account which culture it's coming from, and ours is a very conservative culture. So we have to, you know, we have to work with that in mind.
Now, you know, as a young boy, you apparently used to read a lot of American pulp fiction writers like Edgar Allan Poe, Stephen King, so on and so forth. But you know, that cultural milieu in which these writers used to write their you know, fictions were lapped up by the masses. But my question to you is that, you know, how do you fit that, or whatever is remaining in your mind on your readings of such kind of stories? How does it fit into an Assamese milieu, for example, or an Indian milieu for that matter?
Well, the milieu, what you talk about that Edgar Allan Poe had, or any writer out of the West or anywhere in the world have, is the backdrop is the cultural, you know, milieu where they come from, but the stories they tell are universal. They deal with topics of fear, loathing, hate, you know, anger. You know, so these are universal things. You know, even here people feel the same.
And cinema is, of course, an universal medium.
That it is, of course, you know, because it's a visual medium. So so it's not a problem. You know, you can, you know, try to hit those emotions, but not try to replicate that cultural milieu. Of course, you can't do that because you cannot replicate small town America in Guwahati. You know?
Tell me, I mean, you have a young daughter, 10-year-old or 11-year-old daughter, 10-year-old. Now, how does your daughter, has she seen the film? What is her reaction?
Twice, yeah.
Twice. And apparently she said somewhere that don't make creepy movies.
Yeah, but she's been telling me this since Kothanodi, you know, that, that make some children's film for a change, you know. So, but yeah, this is something that we have, and I know she loves me for, you know, just being me, so.
Being you.
Yeah.
But are we going to listen to her sharp
Yes. I just said, you know, like, yeah, I do all kinds of films because I'm a professional filmmaker.
So you don't want to be stereotyped, you don't want to be bogged down, as you yourself said, that, you know, we can even expect comedy from you in the days ahead.
Yes, of course, all kinds of films, you know. I mean, nobody likes to be stereotyped, you know, especially a filmmaker or an artist who's doing any kind of art.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I was asking you this question, I didn't get a clear-cut reply from you. What is the genre of Aamis that you'd like to put in your own words?
So like I said, it starts out as a romance. It's all very bright, and it's shot very traditionally, like you shoot a traditional romantic film. And the second half of the film, once it slips into the dark phase, you know, where one character slips into addiction.
Okay.
That is where we play with the form also. We change the angle, the camera angles become much more distorted. And, you know, just try to visualize what goes on in the head of an addict.
Absolutely. On that note, we'll go for a short break. Stay on, don't go away. I'm in conversation with the maker of Aamis, Bhaskar Hazarika. Welcome back. I am in conversation with filmmaker Bhaskar Hazarika presenting his new Assamese film Aamis. Bhaskar, Anurag Kashyap, filmmaker Anurag Kashyap is the presenter of Aamis. And what has been his reaction? He has said that he has never seen a film in India like Aamis ever before. What made him say that? What did he tell you?
So Anurag saw the film in January in 2009, this year,
Yeah.
just before our world premiere in Tribeca. And he really loved the film, and he had told us that time that, if you need any help, do let me know. So when it was time to release the film and we didn't have money to release the film, we, approached him and said, if he could just attach his name to the project,
Right.
by, making it an Anurag Kashyap presents kind of a thing. He presents this film in theaters, then we may get the funding, and that's exactly what happened. He was very generous, and he's a very large-hearted man, and if he likes something, he backs it fully. So he attached his name to the project, and within a week we got funding for the release. So we got to thank him for that.
Absolutely, and that is what is extremely important. And about 20 to 30 theaters in Assam are showing Aamis, and it is going to be released outside Northeast as well. So, what is the arrangement? I understand that you have got a very interesting distribution model. Yes. What is that?
We're working with a company called Movie Saints. And
Movie Saints.
Movie Saints.
Okay.
And they have a mandate to basically enable independent cinema from India achieve a theatrical release.
Right.
Because the traditional way of releasing a film is not really, it's sort of, it's not in favor of small films. It's more skewed towards people, big corporations out of Bollywood who are releasing films. So it's very difficult for independent films to find theatrical space. So Movie Scenes has this interesting model which is demand-driven.
Demand-driven.
Yeah, so if a lot of people in one city want to see a film, they connect with Movie Scenes and they arrange a screening for them in the
Okay, first people demand, book, register themselves
through their website. Yes.
Through a website, and then you book a theater and screen them. That's very interesting. Okay, that will also enable people to see Aamis outside the northeastern region. That means in different parts of the country. Now, Bhaskar, we are talking at a time when the Assamese film industry has suddenly sprung into life. We had such blockbusters recently like Kanchenjunga and Ratnakar, and before that such fantastic films as Village Rock Stars and Bulbul Can Sing that has travelled around the world and got rave reviews. And Ratnakar became the biggest blockbuster of all times in the 84-year-old history of Assamese cinema. As far as box office collections are concerned. And now we have Aamis. Now, how do you describe this phase of Assamese cinema? And that also reflects, the diversity, the depth, the variety of Assamese cinema. How do you see this trend, and what do you have to say?
It's a very welcome trend. I think you're correct. It just shows the diversity and depth of, Assamese cinema, and it is also very commendable and a matter of great pride. Because we are a small community in context of global cultures, and we are definitely punching above our weight by creating all kinds of content, not just one kind of content. So I hope this trend continues. It will continue because I know a lot of good filmmakers are now coming up in Assam, and the next slew of films you'll see in the next 2-3 years will be even better, hopefully.
So what does this indicate? What is the moral of the story?
The moral of the story, what does it indicate? It indicates that, Assamese cinema had fallen into a bit of a dark patch for a variety of reasons in the last 20 years. I can safely say that period is now over, and it's time for us to celebrate, and create our own stories out of Assam. And eventually, I hope that, at some point, people will talk of Assamese cinema in the same league as they do of Korean cinema or Japanese cinema or Marathi cinema,
So do you think that stage has come where people are going to talk of Assamese cinema as some of the other films which you just mentioned, like Korean films, for example?
Well, not yet, but we are getting there. We're getting there. If we do the right things and we make good films, we'll get there eventually.
So what is it that has been holding back Assamese cinema so long? Why is this sudden momentum? Is it because of the content? Is it because of the quality of the stories? What is your assessment?
Well, there is very little capacity among audiences in Assam to understand, to see how they want, how to view films, So that is changing. More people are getting educated in the ways in which they can consume cinema. And also the people who make films are also getting trained now. We see a lot of young kids who have studied outside and they've studied cinema outside, coming back here and making films. So all of these things is creating that critical mass we need, to just take Assamese cinema up to another level.
Now, you said that you make dark films basically to advance your professional career. Why dark films? Why you say that? You say that because do you think you have tried enough, and do you think does it mean that this is something that sells? Why did you say that?
Well, it's very it's very simple. Nobody else is doing it.
Nobody else is doing it.
So that's so everybody, like out of 8 projects or 10 projects, 8 are like in one genre, which is romance or happy sunshiny films. So there's an opportunity there.
But when people, yeah, there's an opportunity there. But when people said, "Oh, Bhaskar, you are making a brave movie," but that can also, I mean, you can also look at it as not a good compliment, really. I mean, sometimes people might
of
say
course it is.
brave can be very challenging.
If somebody calls you out brave, it is interesting, but it just has an ominous ring to it. But you tend to ignore it because what people mean to say is that maybe you should not have made a film like this. But sometimes you need to take a risk, And independent cinema is all about taking risk. I think any independent film is a brave film, if not for the content, if in the way it was made. I mean, Village Rockstars is a good example for that,
Village Rockstars is a good example.
I mean, it is a brave film because it's just one person with a camera who's taken the film, made a film in assignment, taken it to the Oscars. So it's a huge risk he took, and many people are taking risks like this. So yeah, every independent filmmaker is a brave filmmaker.
So do you think independent filmmakers are suddenly found their forte? I mean, suddenly found takers in Indian cinema. At time, how do you match? You are a non-Bollywood type of a person. I mean, if I may use the word very loosely. So do you think there is enough space to flourish in the? Are you able to withstand the competition, the big budget push by the Bollywood film industry?
No, we obviously cannot compete with that. We have to just create
not compete with, but compete with content.
Yes, definitely. Because the difference in a big project coming out of Bombay is a lot of money, backed by things that are not to do with content. It's to do with the stars who are in the film, and what are the deals they've struck with distributors and exhibitors. But there is a niche for independent filmmakers. That is why we make films. People say independent filmmakers make films out of passion, but that's not true. We all have houses to run. We do want our films to make money, but there's a niche that we can exploit.
But there is a certain space for independent filmmakers in the country.
Definitely, it's growing, thanks to digital.
Thanks to digital.
Yeah, the digital medium has really helped us, in this regard.
Now, you see, does it enthuse you enough to make new projects, or do you think you will go for commercial cinema? Because how long can you sustain with art house cinema? That is the question. A lot of people might ask this question. A lot of new filmmakers might want to know from you whether it is okay to be only in the film circuit, or whether one should also venture into commercial filmmaking.
Well, if I had my way, I'd make every human being sustain themselves only on art.
Art house cinema.
Yeah, it's environment friendly too, I think, because you consume less organic food. But that said, every film is a commercial project because somebody is putting in money and that money has to be returned. So even if you do independent cinema, the idea is to put it in such a platform which will recover money for the producer. So in that sense, we are not very different from commercial cinema. What you say commercial cinema, the impulse is the same, to create
Absolutely.
art and make money off it.
Impulse is the same. A lot of space for independent cinema in this country. It is growing. That is a good sign. On that note, we go for another short break. Stay on. I'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm still in conversation with filmmaker Bhaskar Hazarika. Bhaskar, the 108-minute long Aamis, the film, particularly to see the second half where the film transforms into some kind of a horror story. You have said that you prefer the film to go without a break. Usually when you go to a theater there is something called the interval. So you as the filmmaker, you want your film to be seen at one sitting. Why so, and what is the response? Is this going to be a challenge? Are the exhibitors and distributor going to agree to what you wish?
We are talking to individual theatre owners. The question is not just about Aamis, it's about any cinema. And that if the maker has intended the film to be seen in a particular way, I think it is incumbent on people who are showing the film to respect the art form, and respect the way the film is supposed to be shown. So in Aamis, what's happening is you go through a range of emotions. Initially, it's a romance, so you're feeling quite happy, and when the film suddenly slips into the dark zone, you feel really scared. So to experience that transition, you have to see it uninterrupted. This is not I have written films where an interval is built in the script itself. So there is an interval, but in this film it's not like that, and the experience will fail for the viewer if there is an interruption in the film. So I've been trying to talk to individual theatre owners, who have their own commercial considerations of selling beverages or whatever, in the interval. So some of them are receptive, but in case people land up in a show and there's an interval, I always urge people to just step out of the hall and not consume ads in the middle of Aamis. It'll be their loss, and I'll also feel really bad because I did not intend the film to be seen with a break.
Now, the question, every film, for a filmmaker, it's the question of what uppermost in the mind of filmmakers always is the relatability of a film. How can it relate? Can it relate to the viewers? Can it relate to the audience? That is something which every filmmaker, I'm sure, will keep thinking. So what is your reading? Do you think the people will be able to relate to Aamis? And if so, in what way?
The story in Aamis is really bizarre and really outlandish. It is almost on the zone of implausibility. So so what we have done is we've situated the story in a very, very real setting. There is no dramatic drama in the scenes that you see.
Yeah.
It looks very real. So when you put it in Kothanari also we tried the same thing. When you put it in a very real context, the horror of the situation comes out more strongly. So that is why I think people will relate to the world that they'll see in Aamis. It's all shot in Guwahati, so they will see familiar streets, familiar faces. So it makes it very relatable, and it's easier to consume the idea behind the film because it is outlandish.
Outlandish. So, I mean, that is by choice. You made it an outlandish film. Maybe you wrote the story like that, and you want the people's reaction to be on those lines. So, I mean, do you think people will be accepting that way? Do you think a certain education is necessary, awareness is necessary for the people?
Well, little bit of it is definitely required, and like I was saying, how to read cinema, but eventually all art, including cinema, should impact you, emotionally. So we have tried to make a film that will hit people emotionally, and not for this something that they'll see on the surface level. So for that, you don't need education. You just need to have the capacity to feel.
Spontaneous.
Yeah, if you feel strongly for things, you think you will like Aamis. But if you do not, if you're a little stone cold hearted, then you will not like this one.
Yeah. Now, what is it that you are working on at the moment? Can we expect something big from you in the coming days?
There's several things we are working on. There's one short film. There's a small Assamese film we are planning to shoot in the early winter of next year.
Yeah.
Which is a road film, which is written by me, produced by me, but I won't be directing it. And then I'm trying to do another feature film, which I hope I'll be able to shoot, sometime.
Is it going to be an Assamese film or is it going to be a Hindi feature film?
The story is set in Delhi because the nature of the story is that it requires a megapolis, and we don't have one in Guwahati. So I think it will be set in Delhi. So probably it will be in Hindi.
So we're expecting a Hindi feature film from Bhaskar Hazarika in the coming days.
Yeah, I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Now, Now you started, your debut film was Kothanodi in 2015, and that was of course through crowdfunding. And this is, Aamis is considering Assamese film industry, I think it's not a small budget film. So how has Bhaskar Hazarika grown as a director that producers are now interested in you to fund you?
With Aamis, I just got lucky with the correct producer, hearing the story. The first producer I narrated the story to agree to do the film, Poonam Deol. She's a new producer, she's never produced a film before. So she totally connected with the story. And since that day to this day, she's completely backed this project. For a person who is not Assamese to back an Assamese film is really commendable, and we all really appreciate her support for that. So it was, in that sense, it was easier to raise funds for this film than it was for Kothanodi. But I don't know if I'm going to get this lucky in my next project.
I hope you will get lucky. I hope you will get lucky, and we want that you should get lucky. We want a lot of people should come and watch Aamis, and we'll be really looking forward, Bhaskar, for your next ventures, including the Hindi films shot in the megapolis of Delhi. Bhaskar Hazarika, thank you very much for being on my show.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure having you.